From the middle of the River Blackwater, a special 8-hour tribute programme on Breeze is coming live from the Ross Revenge, which is now moored off Bradwell. The pirate station, which was launched in the 60s, changed the face of British pop radio forever. Programme producer and presenter Ray Clark says Caroline has been a pioneer throughout its history.
I think it's a celebration of all of the good times that they've had over the last 30 years. There's a song that will always trigger up a memory. You can always remember where you were the first time you heard House of the Rising Sun by the Animals, A Whiter Shade of Pale, Procol Harum, or, for instance, more recent music, Caroline were the first station to play Dire Straits, the first station to play R.E.M., the first station to play Simply Red.
For Essex Reports, I'm Anton Jarvis.
Anchored in the River Blackwater, Breeze presents All at Sea, a tribute to 30 years of Radio Caroline. It all started over the Easter weekend of 1964.
The BBC Light programme from London. 5:30 this morning. Weather, a news summary, followed by breakfast special with David Simons. Housewife Choice is introduced this morning by Keith Fordyce. And that takes us through till 5 to 10 and our morning prayers. At 10 o'clock, it's A Fine Thing to Sing with Phil McHugh. And at 10:30, music while you wait.
Caroline by the Fortunes. Now, that's a song which brings back memories to us all.
A very good morning to you. We are Breeze. It's now 7 minutes past 10, Sunday morning. Ray Clark and I are here on the Ross Revenge, live on the River Blackwater in Bradwell, within spitting distance of the power station. Really, we're here until 6 o'clock this evening, reliving some memories of our own, and also hopefully giving you some idea of what life was like, both on board and behind the scenes during the 60s and the 70s, the 80s, and indeed right up until the present day. And I suppose rather inevitably the first word has to go to the founder of Radio Caroline, Ronan O'Reilly, a fascinating man, as anybody who knows him will tell you. Probably one of the great men of his generation. But of course, with greatness very often comes weirdness. Ask him a question, you will get an answer eventually. It'll come complete with examples and reminiscences, observations and wildly speculative theories, some of which have been pretty well thought out, and others will be straight off the cuff where they should perhaps have stayed. We're hoping, actually, that he'll drop in later, but for now it may be no bad thing that his opening comments are on tape.
I had a penthouse flat in Eden Place, in fact, and we were all sitting around. You know, it was 7:30 at Friday night, I was going to start the testing. And we were watching our watches and everything else, and suddenly 7:30 arrived. And there must be 15 of us there, you know, people who'd been involved, maybe 12 of us or something. 7:30 arrived, and we all sort of looked at each other, right? And there wasn't a radio in the whole place. There wasn't one single radio. So we all went sort of flying out into Eden Place, all kinds of directions to find a radio. And suddenly, you know, in she came. It was amazing. It wasn't amazing. I mean, you can't really describe the feeling. It's an impossible thing to describe. A tremendous moment. I mean, lots of people must have similar moments, but in different things that they do in life, right? So it was an amazingly high moment. I mean, it was absolute magic. Zapped, you were there, you'd done it, it was happening, and they had a whole team of people you really enjoyed being with and working with, and suddenly the show was on the road.
This is Radio Caroline on 199, your all-day music station. We are on the air every day from 6 in the morning to 6 at night. The time right now is 1 minute past 12, and that means it's time for Christopher Moore.
Hello and happy Easter to all of you. This is Christopher Moore with the First Record program on Radio Caroline. The first record is by the Rolling Stones, and I'd like to play it for all of the people who worked to put the station on the air, and particularly for Ronan.
I don't care too much for money. Money Can't Buy Me Love, reputed to have been the first record ever played on Caroline. It wasn't. It was Not Fade Away, the Rolling Stones. You heard that one as well. Hello, I'm Ray Clark. In another life, I was Mick Williams, only for a short while, I'd admit. But I'm paying my penance now for working on Caroline by producing this program. We have Peter Phillips here as well, who's lurking locally, to use an old Caroline expression. That's from the 60s, and it's the 60s that we're heading to in just a moment. Just to reiterate what we're up to, we're looking at the 60s, the 70s, 70s and the 80s and indeed into the 90s with the history of the world-famous Radio Caroline. It's a story that we can't possibly even begin to scratch the surface of, really. It's like doing the history of the world in 8 hours, but we'll have a jolly good try. And I mentioned we were going back to the 60s. Indeed, we are, with Mike Ahern, a chap now working on commercial radio in London. He also, in his time, has done one programme for Radio 1 and lived...